What happens when someone sees the local church not just as a place to go, but as a movement to multiply? Today's speaker, Tony Jennings, has given his life to that vision, leading a church that isn't just about growing crowds, but about changing lives and transforming communities. As the pastor of Southside Church in Fayetteville, Georgia, Tony is leading a church that's reaching people where they are and pointing them to something greater with grace, clarity, and a whole lot of heart. His story is one of calling, courage, and commitment to helping others meet Jesus in real, everyday ways. Get ready to be challenged, encouraged, and inspired. Please join me in welcoming Tony Jennings.
Well, hey, y'all. It is good to be here with you. You can just consider me your long-lost cousin from Atlanta, Georgia. I am from the South. I'm Southern through and through. So if you go home and you happen to say y'all a few times, I'll take credit for it. That's okay. So before we jump in today's message, I just want you to do me a favor. I need you to spend maybe about, let's say 30 seconds. Spend 30 seconds with the person next to you, sharing some of your happiest moments. Just 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds. Now, before you start, I've got a timer up there, so we're only going to do 30 seconds. But for my introverts in the room that don't feel like talking to anyone, you can just take out your phone and you can write down some happy moments that you have. Or if you came by yourself and you don't necessarily see anyone sitting next to you, just write a few notes of moments that were just filled with happy, okay? Just like really happy moments. 30 seconds, go. You guys can talk out loud. It's okay. You can say it out loud. Okay, so here's what I've noticed. That there are moments in our lives that bring about a sense of happiness that are almost indescribable. It's virtually impossible to describe. Moments like the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series. Come on, I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, and you heard it all throughout the city. Yeah, we did it. We're so overjoyed. We finally won, Well, what about college graduation, right? Seeing maybe your son, your daughter, or a family friend walk across the stage. Oh, it brings so much joy to your heart. It's such a joyous occasion, right? Or what about a wedding? Oh, such a beautiful couple, right? And I know the folks who've been married for 30 years or plus, you're like, they have no idea what they're getting into. But you know that it just fills your heart with so much joy seeing them smile. Or what about my folks who love just being out in nature? We've probably said this once or twice, hey, being out in nature just brings me so much peace, and it fills my heart with so much joy. Now, joy seems really, really great, like happiness on steroids. And just saying the word joy a little bit can make us smile. It's a word we use to describe like this deep sense of happiness and this deep sense of fulfillment. But here's the problem, and it's a huge problem. We sometimes treat joy like we treat happiness. And when we get these two words confused, when we treat them as synonyms, it has the potential to crush our joy and the potential to crush our faith. Now, this may not be true for everyone, but most people are on a quest to find happiness. And if I were to ask you, hey, what do you want most? What do you want most for your family? What do you want most for your friends? What do you want most for your children? I'm sure that many of us would say is, Tony, I just really want them to be happy. You just want them to be happy. Which is why we make sure our situations are more happy than unhappy. We surround ourselves in happy situations. And if we were to dig deep behind this desire to earn more, to do more, to go more places, to have more things, to work more than we should possibly be working, we'd find this deep desire to be happy. And we tend to think, well, maybe a new car will make me happy. A better relationship will make me happy, or maybe a new house will make me happy. And right before we make the purchase or right before we go on the date, and it doesn't even have to be that massive. We could do it like maybe I did the other day. When you get ready to buy a pint of ice cream that you probably shouldn't be eating at 9 o'clock at night, you go, well, you know what? I'm going to buy the ice cream. Or I'm going to buy the car. Or we should buy the house because we deserve to be happy. And not to mention, we live in America. Our Constitution literally supports our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I want you to think about your favorite brands. Your favorite brands, your favorite places to go, your favorite places to shop, your favorite places to eat, the marketing, the branding, all the things. It's really designed to make you feel as if you deserve to be happy. If you buy the things, the house, the car, if you go on the vacation, that you will be happy. That if you have your needs met, or at least if you get the things that you think you deserve, that you will be happy, that life will be easy, life will be better, and that you will be happier. Now, I hate to say it, but I think for those of us who've asked Jesus into our hearts, maybe you prayed a prayer, you've gone down in front of a church service, or I don't know how it happened, but maybe you hope that asking Jesus into your heart would make your life happier. And so sometimes we tend to think that if we have the car, we have the house, we've got the relationship, or we've got a better relationship, and we've got a little bit of Jesus, that's all we need. And for those of you who are followers of Jesus, many of us think that, well, following Jesus will make our life happier. But y'all know this. Y'all are way smarter than I am. Y'all know this. But life is life. And we live in a world full of broken people. We're broken ourselves, and everybody around us feels as if they're broken too. And when things don't go the way we expected them to go, when things don't go as how we planned them in our minds, how we drew it up the perfect way, who do we blame? God. Like, he's God. Isn't it his job to make my life happier? Isn't it his job, his responsibility to make my life easier? To take a little bit of the weight of life off of my back? Isn't it his job? He's God, right? He's the one who created the heavens and the earth. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's God. He's the one in Romans 8 that says all things work together for the good. He's God. But can we get real since we're family here already? Can we get real for a moment? If he's God and he wants my life to be happier, well, how come I was passed up for the promotion? Doesn't he know that I needed the promotion in order for my life to be a little bit easier? Maybe I'd experience a little bit of more happiness? If he's God, why is he letting my children experience being bullied? Like, he's God. Why can't my wife or my husband get on the same page with me? Why is it always feeling like we're arguing all the time? He's supposed to be God. Can't he make this disappear? If he's God, why is my mom battling with cancer right now? Why is my dad struggling with heart failure? Let's get even more honest. This is a little bit my story. If he's God, why did he let my wife sit in the hospital for months and months and months? Why do we have to deal with 3+ years of infertility? Why? He's supposed to be God. If we were to read through Scripture, we'd see that, especially the New Testament, we see that it paints a completely different picture of Jesus and happiness. If you've ever studied the disciples, they were 12 close followers of Jesus, and y'all, they had a good 3-year run. I mean, they turned water into wine. They healed a ton of people. They fed thousands of folks with just a sack lunch, and their popularity was just growing and growing and growing. Their influence was growing as well. But do you know what happened to most of them, to all of them in the end? I'll just tell you, it didn't end in a Disney movie. As a matter of fact, let's get a little bit more specific here. Judas was He committed suicide because he betrayed Jesus. John was sent to some remote island, exiled from his community. He was persecuted. Paul and Peter were both persecuted, beaten, and thrown in prison for their faith, for following Jesus. And Jesus, he's Jesus. And yet he hung on the cross. I could go on, but the point still remains that a relationship with Jesus, it didn't make their life happier. Listen, this is why so many followers of Jesus, or so many people who used to go to church, they no longer go to church because they went expecting it to make their lives happier. And they thought, well, what's the point? What's the point of church or Jesus if it isn't making me happier? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not in any way saying that I'm against happiness. I love happiness. It's a wonderful emotion, y'all. I've got this 1.5-year-old at home who's walking and talking, and he says, "Dada," in this just the strangest voice, but it makes me happy all the time. So I'm not saying that I'm against being happy. It is a wonderful emotion, but it's not God's goal for us. It's not what God has promised us. And here's why. Happiness is a temporary emotion dependent on external circumstances. And it's usually triggered by those life events, those massive accomplishments that you have, or sometimes even just having a little fun. But the reality is happiness is fleeting. It's always changing. So back to those examples, the college graduation. It didn't fill our heart with joy. We were just happy that the college graduated. Or as a matter of fact, for some of you who were on your last child, you're probably like, yes, I got my house back. Or the wedding. The wedding, it didn't fill your heart with joy. You were just happy that the young couple finally did it. They did something. They did it. And the Atlanta Braves, well, we were losing a lot, and we finally won. We finally did it. So our heart wasn't filled with joy. We were just happy. We were just happy. And I think for most of us, we're happiest when things go our way, which has nothing to do with joy. And this is partially why Paul did list it as one of the fruit of the spirits. He says this in Galatians 5. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy. He didn't include happiness. Joy. Here's the thing, y'all. Fruit isn't something you create, but it is a result of the Spirit in our lives. We can't produce fruit on our own. It's only when we step with the Spirit that we experience fruit. And unlike happiness, joy is something much deeper than a circumstantial emotion. Now, while we all seek happiness, the Holy Spirit hopes to produce something greater in our lives, and that something is joy. So my question for you is this: what is joy? So my hope was that when we started our conversation together, that you kind of got comfortable talking to each other. So, hey, y'all, guess what we're about to do? We've got another 30 seconds. I need you to talk about, hey, what is joy? 30 seconds and go. Ooh, we're having some good conversations. I like to see it. All right, now I'm sure that y'all came up with some really good definitions of joy. But what is joy? And I saw some of you laughing a little bit, so I'm going to try my best to find you when we finish to figure out what y'all said to each other, because I feel like it was a dad joke. I think it was. But what is joy? Ironically, it's a word that we tend to use as happiness, for happiness. It's a word that we use as a synonym for happiness, and it's actually defined as the opposite. Joy can be permanent, not temporary. And joy isn't circumstantial, but it is essential. And in a biblical sense, joy is a deep, more enduring, and something more deeper and something much more enduring. Joy is a deep, abiding sense of gladness and delight that comes from God, regardless of circumstances. So joy is not merely an emotion, but it is a state of being that comes from our relationship with God. And biblical joy is not dependent on external circumstances, but it is a result of one's inner spiritual condition and faith. This means that joy can be experienced in the midst of suffering. That joy can be experienced in the midst of hardships. Joy can be experienced in the midst of pain, in the midst of shame, in the midst of doubt, because it is rooted in knowledge and trust in God's sovereignty and his goodness and his unconditional love. And maybe not happiness, but joy. And joy is what God has promised us as a fruit of walking with him and in the Spirit. And so this is why James used the word joy like this. He says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." Y'all, I'll tell you, when my wife spent close to 10 weeks in the hospital, and if we ever get a chance to meet again, I'd love to share that story with you because she is a phenomenal woman. But she spent about 10 weeks in the hospital as we were waiting and hoping and praying that our little boy would be born. In that moment, I don't think I experienced happiness. I would be lying to you if I told you that I was extremely happy to sit there and see her in so much pain. To see every day that she has to wake up and go from the restroom, from the bathroom, right to her bed. That's as far as she could walk. I'd be lying to you if I told you I was excited every day and spending every single waking moment in there with her. No, but I will tell you that we did experience joy. So the question for us is, how do we build up our joy quotient? How do we make joy something that's not temporary for us in our lives? It's not based on circumstances like happiness, but how do we build our capacity for joy? When I think of someone who understood joy in the midst of suffering and in the midst of hardship, I think of Paul. Paul was one of the greatest church planters the world had ever seen. He wrote most of the New Testament, and he completely moved the church forward more than anyone else. But following Jesus got him in this place, and I want you to just pay close attention to this. Let's really focus in for a moment. Paul writes this: "I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods, and once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in dangers in the city, and in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I have labored and toiled and have gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. Besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches." And verse 27, he says something that I think, regardless of what was said before, I think we all can at least agree that we have experienced this, or we may know someone in our circle of influence, or even someone that may not be in our circle of influence, but we've seen people who've experienced this. In 27, he goes, "I've labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I've been cold and I've been naked. But then Paul's letter to the Philippi, he writes this: "But I rejoice greatly in the Lord, that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances." Basically, he's saying, I've learned that seeking happiness is circumstantial, but joy and contentment can be found outside of any of my circumstances. And remember, as we read earlier, Paul had experienced his share of trials and tough situations. If we continue to read it, it says this in verse 12. "I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want." So what's the secret, Paul? Paul says this: I can do all this through him. And in other translations, it says through Christ who gives me strength. Now, I know you probably have seen this on some type of motivational poster where someone's standing at the top of the mountain with their arms up, and it's like, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. But here again is our problem. We associate contentment and the secret of life to with achievements and accomplishments, basically circumstances. But what Paul is suggesting isn't situational or circumstantial. It's not a motivational poster that we put up on our wall in our home office. And here's Paul's point. Life makes happiness fleeting, but faith in Jesus makes joy permanent. And when we remain in step with the Spirit, we can face life's ups and downs without losing our joy. When we remain dependent on Him, we can remain content. Because happiness is circumstantial and external, it's easy to chase because happiness is easy to find. But it's only temporary because we create happiness. Happiness is in that moment that you were kind of talking about earlier, those moments when you were the happiest in a long time, or memories of back maybe 2 weeks ago, or maybe even yesterday, where you were filled with this heart of happiness. Because we can create it with achievements, with reaching goals, with having some fun. But joy is different. Joy is internal, and it's not temporary, but it's eternal. And Paul suggests it's the fruit of the Spirit because unlike happiness, we can't create joy. We can't force it. Because here's the thing, we create happiness. Fun moments, goals, achievements, but we cultivate joy. And it takes time to cultivate a seed of faith into a flower of joy. And cultivation is a process. It's not an event. So if we want to cultivate joy in our hearts, we've got to first commit to separating it from happiness. And here's the thing, y'all, I hope that you experience tons of happiness in your life. I hope you experience so much happiness that if you tried to fill a bowl up full of written notes of happiness, happy moments, that it would just overflow. But it's fleeting. Happiness is circumstantial, and it stands to reason that if happiness is correlated to our circumstances, then a focus other than our circumstances is the first step in cultivating joy. I love how Dallas Willard said this about joy. He says, joy is not pleasure, a mere sensation, but a pervasive and constant sense of well-being. He says it's hope in the goodness of God is joy's indispensable support. So here's the thing, happiness is an earthly emotion based on temporary circumstances. And y'all, if we remain focused on where we're at, if we remain focused on our circumstances, then we remain dedicated to creating happiness. However, Paul suggests something much greater beyond this world. And this is how he found contentment in any and every circumstance. And to find contentment and joy, we need to set our hearts and minds on something more significant than our situation. He says this, since then, you've been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. So rather than focusing on our situations, I think we should focus on finding God in our situations. And every time we focus on finding God, y'all, we plant a seed that can sprout joy. The more seeds we plant, the more we cultivate the potential for the fruit, and meaning that the more we focus on things above, the more we cultivate our heart to bear this type of fruit. So rather than ask, hey, how can I get out of this? What if our question was, hey, God, what do you want me to get out of this? Because joy is our choice. It's your choice. Because y'all, we can create happiness. But cultivating joy is a choice we get to make. So to close, I was going to ask you this question. Like, imagine your life, or imagine a life where you were so happy all the time. But that's impossible. But more importantly, that's not God's goal for us. And that's not a life that leads us to the feet of Jesus. So that's not a life that leads us to the best life. So instead, I'd love for you to imagine a life full of joy. Y'all, imagine a life full of joy beyond your circumstances, beyond the disappointments, beyond the shame, beyond the failure, beyond the anxiety, beyond the depression, beyond all of the pain of your past. Imagine a life that is just filled with unshakable joy. This is what Jesus is offering you. And this is what the Holy Spirit can provide you. So before I pray, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to imagine a life with Jesus that is filled with unshakable joy.
Well, I really hope that was helpful for integrating faith with life. Listen, if you're in Northwest Indiana, I'd love to have you join us in person. Head over to suncrest.org and plan your visit.